Hey, it's Morella Manelli, and I'm gonna show you how to get this really gorgeous, beautiful result from faded black box dye, as well as how to diffuse a line of demarcation. And I can't wait to get this video started, so now let's go ahead and go right to the consultation. So as you can see, we have a little bit of a color correction here on our hand. So normally what I would suggest if you're new to color corrections is to go in with the strand test, because this is what's going to give you the best predictability of what could occur. So if I were to do a strand test on her hair and it lifted uneven or didn't want to push past that orange level, that's a huge indicator for you to go in with a color remover. Now, I've been doing this quite a long time, and just based on her hair history and her telling me she used black box dye and how this faded, it's relatively even, and it is a lighter shade of brown than the black. So I already know that I want to go in with that color remover without doing the strand test. And since she kind of wants those level 7 highlights, I feel pretty confident going about the route of the color remover, then lightening her, and then finishing her off with a really gorgeous glaze. Now it's been about 20 minutes after her Malibu CPR treatment under the dryer. I 100% washed her and dried her, and now you can see all of that exposed underlying pigment that was living right underneath all of that color. So a really great indicator is to use your level finder in your Kenra color book, and what you can see here, she's really living around that level 5, so that's kind of what we're working with, which this gives me a really great foundation for the look that we're trying to achieve today. For her sectioning, I'm keeping her right down the middle because that's typically where she parts it. I'm keeping it really simple, just going from the apex right down behind the ear. For this project, I'm using Kenra Professional Simply Blonde Blue Powder Lightener at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 20 volume developer. And I'm gonna start out by adding in some highlights right along her hairline in the back. So you can see I took a zigzag section here, and it's about 1/4 of an inch wide. And for extra diffusion, I'm just gonna lightly kind of tease this up. So not a super packed tease, which is something really light, because typically people have a lot of little baby hairs living right here along the hairline, and I just kind of want to push those away. And I want to keep this also really rooted. I'm also gonna be using my Cooboard along with my Big Papa foils. The reason why I love these is because they're very large tools to use, and it gives me a large working space. So to get started with the highlights, I'm applying my lightener from the mids right on down, just kind of saturating that, making sure it's a really great placeholder for me. And then we're just gonna go ahead and stroke this all the way up evenly. And I'm not going all the way up into the root area, I just want enough so that we have that nice pop, especially when she brings her hair forward. Now, depending on how much brightness you want right here on this hairline, you can weave this section just to have a little bit of a dropout, or like I did on that very first section, I went ahead and teased these hairs right on up. And when you're doing this teasing method, and again, I'm not really packing this up, but you can see we have like a really nice highlight kind of happening already, so it's already doing the work for me. Now, if you come up with a little trouble, these little baby hairs just really wanting to be part of the party, just kind of push those aside and hold it down with the clip. And when doing this technique, you're always gonna wanna make sure that you're thoroughly saturating the ends. And if for some reason you're working with a really large section, you will get a little less lift out of it because you're not allowing the lightener to really penetrate through. So if you do run into that, a lot of times what I like to do is just kind of open up this hair and moving it side to side and allowing for that lightener to go all the way through. So I'm gonna do the same exact thing to the other side, just lightly teasing those hairs up and inserting my Cooboard. Now, if you're wondering why I'm using zigzag sections, I'm using those because it actually adds to the diffusion of the highlights. Another little tip is when you are applying your lightener, you want to make sure that you have a nice even application. If it looks visually patchy right here, then it's going to lift exactly in that way. So you want to make sure that you have a good saturation here and you have like a nice little stroke of a wrist. So you're blending and feathering that lightener right into the area where you want that dark into light to live. So to marry these two sections, I'm going to do a couple little horizontals here. Now these sections are almost touching, and that's kind of what I want to mimic here. And since this is a round shape of a head, that's exactly why I'm going to connect these two pieces. I want to complete this halo right here. So I'm just going to take a little zigzag section, and this is still kind of like a pretty big piece, so we're just going to highlight this. And I'm going to go from the underside here and just pull that out. So I feel like this is a good piece to work with. And we're just gonna lightly tease. Now, this kind of still looks a little uneven to me. It's a little heavier on this side. So all I'm gonna do is still take that teasing technique, but I'm just gonna pull out just a few more hairs so that we have a little bit more balance with this highlight. This is my go-to placement, especially if your client wears their hair up a lot and they do want that rooted pop of blonde when they pull their ponytail up. But it's also really great technique if they tend to wear their hair forward and you really want to see those highlights living right underneath the hairline. So it just kind of completes the money piece from the top and has a really beautiful blend and pop of blonde. So now I just took that next section down, and I feel like overall I'm still loving how I have like a pretty good highlight diffusion here. Lots of larger pieces and smaller pieces. So I'm not gonna have to do too much pull out, because again, that teasing's doing it for me. See how like thin that is? And that's another great tip too when you are working on this dark of a brunette hair, is you're always going to want to make sure that your sections are really thin. The foil is what's gonna help it even lift more so, but you're giving that illusion of that painted hair. You're going to want to use a foil or do a foliage application, because foil is a heat conductor and it's gonna allow you to get more lift out of your brunette hair. The bottom hairline is complete, just has 6 foils going on here. And you can actually stop here if you really wanted to and just really kind of keep this as a face frame. However, we are gonna add some really tiny little baby lights throughout, because I really want her to have this beautiful sun-kissed look on the top. And I also think it's gonna complement a lot of this lighter tone that she has here. I kind of want to bring some of these pieces right on up. For this entire back section, I'm really going to focus on horizontals. Now, if you're wondering why I'm not doing diagonals or what's the difference between diagonals and horizontals and verticals, a horizontal is going to give you a blanket effect, and I'm going to need that because she kind of has this little line of demarcation here. So that's why I need the most blend out of my highlight, and that's why I'm going to go in with that horizontal. And I'm going to take pretty wide sections. I would say about 2 inches. I just need a few. And you don't have to worry about your zigzags being super perfect or, you know, living in the same spot on one side. I want this to be as natural and organic as possible. So having as many uneven pieces is almost kind of beneficial when you're doing a color correction like this. So I have both the top and the side diffused. And then in addition to that, to help me make even more uneven pieces, I'm gonna take my Framar Dreamweaver comb. And I love this because it just highlights for you. And you kind of get this really great pulled apart section that's almost helps you make even a more thinned out teasy light. So you're getting almost like a true baby light, if you will. So this is what's going to help kind of brighten up that hair. And you can see all of the pieces are different sizes, and that's exactly what you want. You want it to be as uneven as possible so you get the best blend and diffusion. For these pieces as well in the interior, I'm just gonna keep it nice and horizontal even in my placement of my lightener. So everything's gonna be living right around here for that blend. So again, I'm gonna go up about 2 inches. So this is actually a pretty wide section. Now, if you wanna be really ambitious, you can definitely do one whole section here, but I'm gonna split this up into 2 sections. And again, I'm gonna zigzag that, insert my Dreamweaver comb, and pull apart these highlights, and then tease. When doing a color correction, there's lots of lightener options that you can choose from, but the reason why I chose Simply Blonde Blue Powder Lightener is because her hair is relatively in great condition. It's super healthy. and it is my go-to lightener for a power lifter. I think the most important thing to remember when you're doing a color correction is to not overcomplicate it and just simplify it as much as possible and working through one step at a time. Now, another reason why I am taking really wide sections, because you notice all of my sections are about 2 inches wide, is because I want to create enough depth on the underside. And even though we're still doing this correction and we're trying to diffuse this line as much as possible, I know that these horizontal sections are going to give me the right amount of balance and brightness and that diffusion. It's literally gonna all come together. And part of that is because we're doing the zigzags as well as the teasing. So now that I have this section here, you can almost kind of imagine, this looks like a lot of hair still living here, but if you can imagine these blonde pieces living right on over that. And that's exactly what I'm trying to show you with that horizontal placement, is we're creating this blanket effect that's gonna live right on top of everything. So really think about your foil placement before you do any type of highlighting, whether it's a correction or not. So I'm just gonna take this one really large section. Now I am adding in this Dreamweaver comb kind of halfway down. This is actually gonna help pull apart from the bottom and the top really beautifully, because like I mentioned before, we want to create as uneven of a highlight as possible. So this is what's gonna help with that diffusion. And then I'm just gonna lightly tease this up. I'm not looking to go all the way up. I wanna keep these pretty subtle. And like I mentioned before, if you feel like there's still some large pieces, you can just pull some right on out. Overall, I am looking for a little bit more balance in this very last section, just because this is the highlight that is living on top. And because this is a large section here, I'm putting this Cooboard in a little closer to the root and then pushing up. So it keeps my base nice and wide here, because I don't want to cinch it in the middle. It's going to create like an inverted V, and I don't want to create that. I want a nice, even application that's horizontal across the board. Now I'm going to move on to the front, and what I typically like to do is just separate right on the parietal ridge here. Now, a lot of times when you're trying to decide on your placement, I like to just see exactly where the hair naturally lives and exactly what pieces that I want to brighten up. So I can already tell, like just based on this falling here, I really would like to make sure we have these hairs right here kind of brightened. So this is already telling me here that I need to go in with the horizontal. You can already see it kind of already did that when I just separated it on the bottom with my fingers. So a lot of times you just look at the hair and let it kind of tell you where exactly it wants to live. So since I kind of know that and I want that pop of blonde right here, I'm just gonna take this section and clean it up a little bit. And I'm gonna continue on with my little zigzag pattern here. And again, I'm gonna take another zigzag section. So this is creating 2 sections here. And another little tip here is when you are doing this technique, because we are lightening right here on the back section, we need to make sure we're marrying these pieces together. So you wanna make sure this section goes right to behind the ear. Because if you don't, what will happen is you'll have like this dark panel or piece living here, and it's just not gonna look very married when you bring the hair forward. I'm gonna take this entire section. We're just gonna tease this kind of lightly. I don't really like packing in my tease because it makes way too much work later on, especially when we're washing the hair. Little section here, I'm gonna use some pop-up foils instead. And I'm gonna take these up as high as possible just because it is living right around the face. And then another benefit of doing a tease right here on this hairline is when you're doing somebody with brunette hair, a lot of times you're gonna look best with the hair, the color that you're born with. So I wanna make sure there's enough darkness and depth around the face, because that hair is kind of like a frame to your face. It's really what is creating that background for you. And these blonde highlights are just accessory to it. And then I'm just gonna flat wrap these foils and bring my next section down and do the same exact thing. I think overall, if you're trying to decide if your teased piece is looking correct, just always remember that it should look like you highlighted it, like you weaved it with your comb. And that's exactly what we achieved with this teased section here. I'll just layer another foil right here on the ends by lifting this up and then placing that foil right on top. And the way it's gonna stick and not move is because we have that lightener living right behind it. And then I just usually flip that bottom section right on up and then take one more foil and place it right on top. So just taking a little visual here of her front hairline. I don't really feel like I need to weave this because again, depending on how many like little baby hairs your client has, teasing it might just do the trick for you where you don't need to foil it. But if you're again working with someone who has a lot of density right here on the hairline, or you want to add a lot of subtlety here, or little subtlety here. Or if you want to add subtlety here, you can just go ahead and lightly weave this. But I really would like that pop of blonde to kind of live throughout, kind of keeping that same technique that we did right underneath. So you can see here we got a nice little baby light on this side, and it's a little bit too thick here for my liking, so I'm just gonna go ahead and weave some of this out to kind of mimic what I got going on in that front hairline. And again, I'm gonna take this lightener up a little bit higher right here on the front hairline. I did not do this so much in the back, so just kind of keep that in mind. This is living a lot higher up, and that's only because we're right around that face area. Now I'm gonna take another section, another diagonal here. And now you can see when I take this entire section, there's gonna be a little tiny highlight living right here. So that's why I wasn't so concerned about highlighting that section right there. So again, it's just all about like simplifying what you're doing. I'm gonna take my Cooboard up a little higher because the section's a little wider here, and I'm actually gonna push up so that way I can get as close to the root as possible with this teasy light. So now that I have my two back-to-back highlights sitting right here with no subsection in between, just to kind of marry this into the rest of her hair, because this is gonna live underneath where her part is at, I have my zigzag parting, and now I'm gonna take my Dreamweaver comb to create that highlight again. So this just creates a little bit more extra background, so we have a little bit of a dropout here, and in addition to that tease. One added tip, if you are doing teasy lights and you happen to get lightener right here on this hair, you have a couple options. You can actually sometimes leave it. It actually does just fine, but a lot of times what I do is just wipe it off with my hands or with a towel. Just continue to move on. Again, don't overthink this process. Okay. So now I have my 4 impact pieces and my diffused highlight living right on top. It's gonna introduce the darkness that we're gonna achieve right on top, because this is gonna lay right on over. But I still have to consider this little bit of line of demarcation right here. So this is why I'm gonna go in with a really soft baby light right on top, just to kind of overlay this and help diffuse this line of demarcation we got going on. So I'm actually adding this highlight right behind the part line. Now I have this side completed with only 6 foils, and I'm gonna do the same exact thing to the other side. Applying all of her foils, so now we're going to process her room temperature. I'm gonna check her foils in about 30 minutes, but we have up to 45 minutes to process. I might do some reapplication. We'll see how she lifts, because again, she is a color correction. I do want to keep an eye on it, but we're gonna let this 20 volume do its thing, and then hopefully we got enough lift, and then we're gonna tone her with a color melt formula. So as you can see, we got a pretty beautiful lift. It's almost even. We have a little bit of depth kind of going on here, which is to be expected because this is where she had that black box dye. But overall, we got a nice even lift, and I think that has a lot to do with the color remover that we prepped her hair with. So it allowed the lightener to really do its job so we can get an even lift. And I'm loving this blanket effect that we're gonna have. As you can see, this is already falling over beautifully, which is gonna diffuse that line of demarcation. So I'm gonna allow the front to continue to process. It needs a little bit more time. And Then I'm gonna take her over to the shampoo bowl and then do a color melt glaze. So I'm really loving this level 8 lift that we got. And originally I thought we were gonna go in with a color melt toner, but I think the blend is really beautiful. And I think we just need to go in with a very simple toner. So I decided we're gonna be using Demi-permanent, colors 7B and 8B equal parts with 9 volume developer, and then just process her right at the bowl for 15 minutes. So now that she's all toned, shampooed, and conditioned, I'm gonna go in with AllCurl Hydrating Leave-In. Now she has naturally curly hair and we are gonna do a really beautiful blowout on her. So even though this product is great for curly hair and styling curly hair, it's also a really versatile leave-in conditioner so that we can hydrate her hair and prep it for our next product. So next I'm gonna be using the Smoothing Blowout Lotion. And this is gonna give me a medium hold on her hair. So she has a really beautiful, pretty resistant curl, I would say. So this is gonna be a great product for providing me with a little bit of tension and that hold to really pull out these curls so I can get that voluminous blowout. So now I'm gonna go ahead and rough dry her, smoothing her out with a flat brush right at the roots to stretch out those curls and then finish her off with a round brush style. Now that she's all blow dried and smoothed out, I'm gonna be using Silkening Heat Cream. So this is gonna give me thermal protection and add a lot of shine to her hair as well. This is one of my favorite products before doing any flat ironing, curling, and this is a perfect product for somebody who doesn't want to feel that strong hold, but they need that thermal protection for those hot styling tools. To finish off her style, I'm gonna be using this 1.5 inch curling iron. So now I'm gonna finish off her style with Kenra Design Spray. This has a really light hold and I love it for breaking up her curls after they've cooled in place. So this has a memory style to it, but with that light touchable hold, which is perfect for somebody who doesn't want to feel any hairspray in their hair.
This is exactly how I wanted my hair to be.
Yeah, so what's really great is like we have these, I did those highlights kind of living under here. So like how I mentioned, when you bring this forward, you're really gonna have that pop of blonde.
Yes, you can see it. Yeah, definitely. This is exactly how I wanted it. Wow.
And
I love it so much. Oh my God.
Yeah, and all of your highlights are living underneath. So this is gonna make it really low maintenance for you.
It looks super nice, super natural. That's what I love. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. This is awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
So I really hope you enjoyed this hair tutorial, and if you did, please give this video a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe, and be sure to check out our other hair tutorials right here on this channel, and I will see you in the next video.